Order! Miss Jenkins, sit down or I will have you removed by the bailiff." Judge Holloway's voice didn't just fill the room, it shook the walls. But Vanessa wasn't listening. She was standing up, her chair knocked backward, pointing a manicured finger right at my face. "He forged it!" she screamed, her face twisted into something ugly and desperate. "That's not real! He paid someone to fake that paper! He's trying to starve my baby!" I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. I just sat there, my hands folded on the table, watching her unravel. For 6 months, she had painted me as the villain. She had dragged my name through the mud, called my employer, and turned our mutual friends against me. She had demanded $2,400 a month in support for a child I had never even held. The bailiff, a guy the size of a linebacker, stepped toward her. "Ma'am, sit down." She collapsed into her chair, sobbing, not sad tears, angry tears. The tears of a predator who just realized the trap snapped shut on her own leg. The judge adjusted her glasses and looked down at the piece of paper I had just submitted. The courtroom went dead silent. You could hear the hum of the air conditioning. "Mr. Daniels," the judge said, looking at me with a completely different expression than she had 5 minutes ago. "This document, it's verified by an accredited lab?" "Yes, Your Honor," I said. "Chain of custody is attached on page 2. "Then let the record show," the judge read, her voice cutting through the silence like a knife, "that the probability of paternity is 0.00%. Vanessa let out a wail that sounded like a wounded animal. I looked at her. I looked at the lawyer who had sent me threatening letters for months, and for the first time in half a year, I breathed. They say the truth will set you free, but they forget to mention that sometimes the truth destroys everything in its path before it sets you free. And I was about to light the match. If you think that courtroom scene was crazy, just wait. Because how I got that DNA test without her knowing is a story that almost got me arrested. But before we get to the heist, we have to go back to the beginning. See, I'm a simple guy. I believe in hard work, honesty, and taking responsibility. If you make a mess, you clean it up. If you have a kid, you take care of it. That's how I was raised. And honestly, if you believe that being a father is a sacred duty, not just a paycheck, but a real commitment, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button right now. Let's build a community of people who actually value the truth. I met Vanessa at a spin class. Cliché, right? She was gorgeous, high energy, and seemed to have her life completely together. She was a marketing exec, drove a nice car, and laughed at all my jokes. For the first 3 months, it was perfect. We were inseparable. But looking back, there were signs I ignored. Like the way she never let me see her phone, or how she'd disappear for 6 hours at a time and claim she was napping, or how she was obsessed with my salary. "So, in logistics management, do you get bonuses?" she asked me on our 3rd date, "like quarterly or annual?" I thought she was just being curious. Now I know she was doing an appraisal. Then came the bombshell. It was a rainy Tuesday. I came over to her apartment, and she was sitting on the floor, holding a pregnancy test. "Mark," she whispered, "it's positive." My heart stopped. We had been careful, or so I thought. But here is the thing about me. I don't run. I sat down next to her, took her hand, and looked her in the eye. "Okay," I said, "then we're doing this. I'm going to be there, 100%. I expected her to be relieved. I expected a hug. Instead, she pulled her hand away. "I don't need you to be there, Mark," she said coldly. "I need security. Babies are expensive. My apartment is too small. My car isn't safe for an infant." She stood up and started pacing. "I've already looked at a townhouse in the suburbs. It's $3,200 a month. You'll need to sign the lease by Friday." I blinked. Vanessa, hold on. We just found out 5 minutes ago. Can we maybe talk about a budget or a plan? She spun around, her eyes flashing with a rage I had never seen before. A budget? This is your child. Are you trying to cheap out on your own flesh and blood? If you aren't going to step up financially, then I don't want you involved at all. That was the first time I felt it. That cold feeling in the pit of my stomach. That wasn't the voice of a scared mother. That was the voice of a hostage taker. Over the next few weeks, my life became a transaction. Every conversation started with a dollar sign. She needed $500 for special organic vitamins. She needed $1,200 for a consultation with a doula she hadn't even hired yet. I paid it. I paid it all because I wanted to be a good dad. But then the math started itching at the back of my brain. She was claiming she was 8 weeks pregnant. I sat at my desk at work one night, looking at the calendar. 8 weeks ago, that would be the second week of August. I opened my work calendar. August 10th, August 17th, Regional Supply Chain Conference in Denver. I stared at the screen. I was in Denver. Vanessa was in Miami. I wasn't even in the same time zone when this baby was supposedly conceived. My hands started to sweat. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe the doctors were off by a week or two. Ultrasound dating isn't an exact science, right? That's what I told myself. I needed to be sure. I needed to see the medical records. So, the next day, I asked her, "Hey, for the next ultrasound, I want to come, and I'd love to see the paperwork just to track the growth chart." Vanessa froze. She was cutting an apple in the kitchen, and the knife just stopped mid-slice. "You don't trust me?" she asked. Her voice was quiet, dangerous. "It's not about trust," I lied. "I just want to be involved." She turned around, pointing the knife at me. Not in a stabbing way, but in an accusatory way. "You think I'm lying? You think I'm some kind of shit? After everything I'm going through, carrying your baby, getting fat, getting sick, you want to audit me?" "Vanessa, I just want to see the ultrasound." "No!" she screamed. "You're stressing me out. Stress causes miscarriages. If I lose this baby, it's your fault." She threw the apple into the sink and stormed into the bedroom, slamming the door so hard the pictures on the wall rattled. I stood there in the kitchen, staring at the closed door. That was the moment I knew. She wasn't hiding the baby for its health. She was hiding the dates. I pulled out my phone. I had a shared iCloud album with her from a vacation we took. I started scrolling, looking for anything, a geotag, a timestamp, anything that could prove where she was during that week in August. And then I saw it. A photo she had taken, but then deleted from the shared album. But thanks to the recently deleted folder glitch on my iPad, it was still there. It was a selfie, dated August 14th. She was at a bar. I recognized the background. It wasn't Miami. And there was a guy's arm around her waist, a guy wearing a watch that definitely wasn't mine. I felt like I was going to throw up, but then the nausea turned into something else, something colder. She wasn't just cheating. She was trying to pin another man's responsibility on me because she knew I had a steady job and a save-the-day complex. She thought I was a sucker. I looked at the bedroom door. I could hear her fake crying inside. "Okay, Vanessa," I whispered to myself. "You want a check? I'll give you a check. But first, I needed DNA. And getting it from a baby that wasn't born yet, without the mother's permission, that is nearly impossible. Unless you know a loophole." And luckily for me, I knew exactly how to play dirty. The loophole wasn't a legal trick, it was a psychological one. I realized that night in the kitchen that Vanessa was operating on one primary emotion: greed. As long as the money was flowing, she felt safe. As long as I was the dutiful, whipped boyfriend, she wouldn't suspect that I was sharpening a knife behind my back. So I changed my entire personality. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen. She was glaring at me, waiting for a fight about the apple incident. Instead, I put a check for $1,500 on the counter. "You're right," I said, looking defeated. "I'm sorry. I was just stressed about work. This is for the doula and the deposit on the crib." Her eyes went to the check instantly. The anger vanished, replaced by a smug satisfaction. She picked it up, flicked the edge of the paper, and smiled. "Thank you, Mark. I knew you'd come around. We just need to prioritize the baby." From that moment on, I became the perfect actor. I went to the furniture store. I nodded when she picked out the $800 stroller. I painted the nursery a soft gray. But while I was painting, I was also plotting. I hired a private investigator. Not a cheap one either. I needed to know who the guy in the watch was. A lot of people would have just walked away right then. But I needed proof. I needed absolute vindication. If you're the kind of person who needs to see the whole truth before you make a move, hit that like button. It helps the channel, and it tells me you're paying attention. 3 days later, the PI sent me a file. His name was Kyle. He was a 24-year-old aspiring DJ who still lived in his parents' basement in Miami. His Instagram was full of pictures of him partying, drinking, and, you guessed it, hanging out at that specific bar on August 14th. And in one photo, zoomed in by the PI, I saw it. Vanessa. In the background, looking very cozy. The timeline matched perfectly. She had gone down for a girls' trip, hooked up with Kyle the DJ, got pregnant, realized Kyle couldn't pay for a Happy Meal, let alone a child, and came back to me, the stable logistics manager with the 401k. I wasn't a boyfriend. I was a bailout plan. Knowing the truth is a double-edged sword. It gave me power, but it made every single day a living hell. Every time she touched me, every time she called it our baby, I wanted to scream. But I held it in. I had to wait for the birth. Because here is the legal reality. In my state, you can't get a court-ordered DNA test until the child is born. If I confronted her now, she'd cut me off, disappear, or maybe even move states. I had to wait until that baby was in my arms. I had to wait for the hospital.
As the due date approached, Vanessa started pushing for the paperwork. "We need to go to the vital statistics office early," she said over dinner one night. "We can sign the AOP, the Acknowledgement of Paternity, now, so it's all done before the chaos of the birth." My blood ran cold. If you don't know what an AOP is, listen closely. This is the most dangerous piece of paper a man can sign. The Acknowledgement of Paternity is a voluntary form. Once you sign it, you are the legal father, period. Even if a DNA test later proves you aren't, overturning a signed AOP is a legal nightmare that can take years. It waives your right to a DNA test in many jurisdictions. She was trying to lock me in legally before the baby even took its first breath. "That sounds great," I lied. "But I actually read that it's better to do it at the hospital. They have a notary there, and it helps with the insurance processing instantly." "Are you sure?" she asked, narrowing her eyes. "My friend said we should do it now." "Positive. Plus, it's bad luck to sign birth papers before the birth. My grandmother always said that." It was a stupid lie. But she bought it. She shrugged. "Fine, as long as it gets signed before we leave the hospital." "Oh, it'll get handled," I said. October 14th came and went. No baby. October 20th. Nothing. "See," I told her, "the dates were off. The baby is late." "Babies are late all the time, Mark," she snapped. Stop obsessing over the calendar. Finally, on October 24th, I got the call at work. It's time, she screamed into the phone. My water broke. My heart started hammering against my ribs. This was it. This was the moment of truth. I grabbed my go bag from under my desk, but it didn't have snacks or a change of clothes in it. Inside the front pocket, wrapped in a Ziploc bag, was a sterile buccal swab kit I had bought online. It was time to go to work. The hospital scene was chaotic. Nurses running, machines beeping, Vanessa screaming in pain. Despite everything she had done to me, I did feel for her. Childbirth is brutal. I held her hand. I wiped her forehead. For a few hours, the anger subsided, and I was just a human helping another human. But then, at 3:42 a.m., the crying started. A baby boy, 7 pounds, 6 ounces. The doctor placed him on Vanessa's chest. She was crying. I looked down at the baby, and my heart broke. Because looking at him, I knew. He had dark, curly hair. He had a nose that looked nothing like mine or Vanessa's. He looked like Kyle. It's one thing to suspect it. It's another thing to see a child that is supposed to be yours and feel nothing. No recognition, no biological pull. Just a stranger in a blanket. He's beautiful, Vanessa whispered. She looked up at me exhausted. Look at him, Mark. He has your chin. The audacity. The absolute delusion. Yeah, I choked out. He's amazing. I need to sleep, she said, her eyes closing. Can you watch him? Make sure the nurses don't take him away? I've got him. Sleep. This was it. The nurse checked the vitals and left the room. Vanessa was out cold, sedated from the epidural and exhaustion. It was just me and the baby in the dim light of the recovery room. I stood up and walked over to the clear plastic bassinet. The baby was sleeping, his little mouth twitching. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the kit. I pulled the swab out of my pocket. I looked at the door. Closed. I looked at Vanessa, snoring softly. I felt like a criminal. I was stealing DNA from a newborn, but I reminded myself, she is trying to steal 18 years of my life and hundreds of thousands of dollars. This isn't a crime. This is self-defense. I gently opened the baby's mouth. Sorry, little man, I whispered. I rubbed the swab against the inside of his cheek. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds. He stirred and let out a little whimper. I froze. Vanessa shifted in the bed. I yanked the swab out and shoved it in the plastic tube. I capped it and hid it in my sleeve, just as Vanessa opened her eyes. Is he okay? She mumbled. Yeah, I said, my voice cracking. Just adjusting his blanket. Go back to sleep. She drifted off again. I went to the bathroom, sealed the tube in the return envelope, and buried it deep in my backpack. I had the sample. Now came the hardest part. The reveal. Because the next morning, the hospital social worker walked in with a clipboard. Good morning, she chirped. I have the birth certificate and the acknowledgement of paternity for you, Dad. Just need a signature right here. She handed me the pen. Vanessa was sitting up, feeding the baby, watching me like a hawk.
The pen hovered over the paper. If I signed this, I was dead. If I refused, World War III would start right here in the maternity ward. I looked at the social worker. I looked at Vanessa. And I did something that shocked both of them.
The pen hovered over the father's signature line. The ink tip was trembling, just a millimeter above the paper. Vanessa was watching me, a satisfied smile on her face. She thought she had won. She thought the trap was closed. I dropped the pen. Clatter. "Whoops," I said, bending down to pick it up. I stayed down there for a second, taking a deep breath. I stood up, but I didn't write. I turned to the social worker, nice lady named Brenda. "Actually, Brenda, I left my wallet in the car. I need my social security card to make sure I get the digits right for the insurance beneficiary section. Can I borrow you for a second to let me back in the security doors when I return?" "Oh, sure," Brenda said. "Be right back, babe," I told Vanessa. "Hurry up," she said, burping the baby. "I want to go home." I walked out into the hallway with Brenda. As soon as the heavy door clicked shut behind us, my demeanor changed. I stopped walking. "Brenda," I said, my voice low and serious, "I'm not going to the car." She looked confused. "Excuse me?" "I'm not signing that AOP," I said. "And I need you to make sure that paper stays blank." Her eyes widened. She'd probably seen this drama before, but maybe not from a guy who looked as calm as I did. "Sir," she whispered, "if you don't sign, you aren't the legal father. You won't have rights." "I know. But I have reason to believe that child isn't mine. I'm conducting a private DNA test. Until that comes back, I am signing nothing." Brendan nodded slowly. She looked at the door to Vanessa's room, then back at me. "I can't tell her you didn't sign. Confidentiality goes both ways, but the paperwork will remain incomplete in the file." "Thank you." I took 5 minutes. I walked to the vending machine. I bought a Snickers, just to have a prop. I breathed in the hospital air, antiseptic and floor polish. Then I walked back into the room. "All done?" Vanessa asked. "Handled," I lied. Brenda took the file to process it. Vanessa let out a long exhale. "Finally, we're a family." I looked at her. I looked at the baby. Yeah.
The next 5 days were the longest of my life. We brought the baby, let's call him Leo, home. I had to play the part of the doting dad. I assembled the crib, I changed diapers, I woke up at 2 a.m. for feedings. And the crazy part? I actually liked the kid. Leo was innocent. He didn't ask to be part of this scam. It wasn't his fault his mom was a fraud and his bio dad was a DJ named Kyle. This is the hard part about these stories. The kids are the victims. If you agree that children deserve to know the truth about who their parents are from day one, hit that subscribe button. Let's stop normalizing paternity fraud. But while I was warming up bottles, I was constantly checking my email. Refresh, refresh, refresh. I had overnighted the sample to a lab in Ohio. They promised a 48-hour turnaround once received. Wednesday passed. Nothing. Thursday passed. Nothing. Vanessa was getting comfortable. She started making demands again. "Mark, we need to upgrade the car," she said on Friday morning. "The sedan is too low. My back hurts putting the car seat in. I was looking at the new Tahoe." "A Tahoe?" I said. "That's a $70,000 truck." "It's for safety," she snapped. "And since you're the father, you need to provide. By the way, my lawyer is drafting a formal support agreement just to keep things clean. Expect a letter next week." She was suing me. While living in my house, while eating my food. "Okay," I said, gritting my teeth. "I'll look at the Tahoe." I walked into my home office and closed the door. My hands were shaking. I sat down at my computer. One new email. Sender, Gen Tracer. Labs,
Subject, confidential results, case 99821. The room went silent. The sound of the baby crying in the other room faded away. It was just me and the screen. I clicked the email. I scrolled past the technical jargon, past the alleles table, down to the bottom. Conclusion: the alleged father, Mark Daniels, is excluded as the biological father of the child. Probability of paternity: 0.00%. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I laughed. It was a dry, humorless laugh. It was the laugh of a man who just realized he wasn't crazy. I printed the page. Then I printed it again. Then I saved it to 3 different hard drives. I stood up. The fear was gone. The hesitation was gone. Now, I just had to decide how to drop the nuke. I could have walked out there and shoved the paper in her face right then. But remember the judge, Judge Holloway? She hates drama. She hates he said, she said. I needed this to be official. If I confronted Vanessa now, she would run. She would take the kid and vanish, and I'd be stuck fighting a legal battle across state lines. I needed to get her into a courtroom before she knew I knew. So I waited for the letter from her lawyer. It arrived 2 days later, a formal request for child support, full custody, and, get this, spousal maintenance because she had quit her job to be a mother. We weren't even married, and she was asking for alimony. I took the letter to my attorney, a shark named Mr. Henderson. She wants a court date, I told Henderson, sliding the DNA results across his mahogany desk. Let's give her one. Henderson looked at the DNA test. He looked at her demands. He smiled. This is going to be fun, he said. We filed a counter motion immediately, but here's the trick. We didn't mention the DNA test in the initial filing. We simply filed a motion contesting the support amount. We baited the hook. We wanted her to show up to court thinking she was fighting over how much money she would get, not if she would get it. 2 weeks later, the court date arrived. The morning of the hearing, Vanessa was in high spirits. She dressed in a modest beige suit, her innocent mom costume. "Are you driving separately?" she asked me. "Yeah," I adjusted my tie. "I'll have to stop by the office first. I'll meet you there." "Don't be late," she said, checking her makeup in the mirror. "And Mark, don't fight me on the money. The judge won't like it." I looked at her reflection. "Don't worry, Vanessa. I think the judge is going to find what I have to say very interesting." She didn't catch the tone. She was too arrogant. I walked out of the house. I got into my car. I looked at the house one last time because I knew by the time the sun went down, I would never step foot in that house with her again. You know that feeling when you're on a roller coaster, just cresting the top of the hill? That split second of weightlessness before the drop? That's what that drive to the courthouse felt like. We are back in the courtroom. Judge Holloway is reading the file. The air is stale. Vanessa's lawyer, the cheap suit guy, starts his opening statement. "Your Honor, my client is a destitute mother. Mr. Daniels has significant income and has, frankly, been financially abusive since the birth of his son. We are asking for $2,400 a month, retroactive to the date of conception, plus legal fees." Vanessa sniffled. She dabbed her eyes. "She made me beg for vitamins," she whispered loudly enough for the mic to catch. Judge Holloway looked at me. "Mr. Daniels, financial abuse is a serious accusation. Why are you contesting the support?" This was it. The moment. I stood up. My legs felt solid. "Your Honor," I said, "I am not contesting the amount. I am contesting the premise." "The premise?" the judge frowned. "You are the father. You signed the birth certificate, did you not?" "Actually, Your Honor, I did not." Vanessa's head snapped toward me. "Yes, he did. He signed it in the hospital." I did not sign the acknowledgement of paternity, I corrected, looking straight at the judge. And the reason I didn't sign it is because of Exhibit C. I pulled the envelope out, the same one from the beginning of this video. I walked it to the bailiff. The bailiff handed it to the judge. The room was silent. Vanessa looked confused. She leaned over to her lawyer. "What is that? What did he give her?" Her lawyer shrugged. He didn't know. Judge Holloway opened the envelope. She pulled out the paper. She put on her reading glasses. She read the header. She read the conclusion. She lowered the paper slowly. She looked over her glasses at Vanessa. The look on the judge's face wasn't anger. It was disgust. "Miss Jenkins," the judge said, her voice dangerously quiet, "did you swear under oath in your initial filing that Mr. Daniels was the only possible father of this child?" Vanessa stood up, looking nervous now. "Yes, Your Honor, of course." "And you are certain of that?" "Yes, we were in a committed relationship." The judge held up the paper. "Then can you explain to this court," Holloway boomed, her voice suddenly filling the room, "why this accredited DNA test says there is a 0% chance of that being true?"
The silence in the courtroom shattered instantly. "That's a lie!" Vanessa screamed, her voice cracking into a high-pitched screech. She slammed her hand on the table. "He typed that up on his computer. He's trying to get out of paying." Her lawyer, the guy in the cheap suit, looked at the document in the judge's hand. He looked at Vanessa. Then he started slowly closing his file. He knew. "Ms. Jenkins," the judge warned, her voice like thunder, "this document is notarized and stamped by Gen Tracer Labs. Are you accusing an accredited laboratory of fraud?" "I'm accusing him," Vanessa pointed at me. Her face was red, veins bulging in her neck. "He's a liar. He's been planning this. He tricked me." "I didn't trick you, Vanessa," I said calmly. "I didn't even stand up. I just didn't let you trick me." "Order!" Judge Holloway banged the gavel. It sounded like a gunshot in the small room. "Ms. Jenkins, sit down or I will hold you in contempt. Counsel, control your client." The lawyer leaned away from Vanessa like she was radioactive. "Your Honor, I was not aware of this evidence. I request a brief recess to confer with my client." "Denied," Holloway snapped. "We are finishing this now." She turned her gaze back to Vanessa. "Ms. Jenkins, the plaintiff has provided conclusive scientific proof that he is not the father. Do you have any evidence to the contrary? A paternity test of your own? An affidavit?" Vanessa stammered. Well, we didn't do a test because I knew it was him. We were together." "And were you with anyone else?" Holloway asked. Her eyes narrowed. "No, no one else." I cleared my throat. "Actually, Your Honor, if I may." I reached into my bag again. Vanessa's eyes went wide. She looked like a deer in headlights. She knew what was coming. "I have Exhibit D. You know that saying, don't bring a knife to a gunfight? Well, Vanessa brought a lie to a data fight, and I had receipts." I walked the second envelope to the bailiff. "Your Honor," I said, "this is a time-stamped photograph retrieved from Miss Jenkins' cloud storage, dated August 14th. This coincides with the date of conception based on the gestational age of the child." The judge pulled out the photo, the one of Vanessa at the bar in Miami, the one with Kyle's arm around her, the one with the visible date. "And," I continued, "attached is a flight manifest I obtained through discovery showing Miss Jenkins traveled to Miami on August 12th and returned August 16th. During those dates, I was in Denver." I looked at Vanessa. "I wasn't even in the state, Vanessa. Unless I can teleport, there is no physical way that child is mine." The courtroom was dead silent again. Judge Holloway looked at the photo. She looked at the flight logs. She looked at Vanessa. "Miss Jenkins," the judge said, her voice dropping to a terrifying whisper, "you just lied to me, On the record, you said there was no one else." Vanessa started crying. Real tears this time? Maybe. Or maybe just panic. It was a mistake. It was one night. I didn't think. I thought it was Mark's. I swear, I thought it was Mark's." You thought it was his, so you sued him for retroactive support? You tried to garnish his wages? You smeared his reputation, all on a guess? "I needed help. I'm a single mom. I have expenses." "That is not Mr. Daniels' problem," the judge roared. I actually flinched. I had never seen a judge lose their temper like that. "You have used this court as a weapon to extort money from a man you knew might not be the father. You have wasted the court's time. You have wasted Mr. Daniels' resources." The judge turned to me. "Mr. Daniels, does the defense have any motions?" I stood up. I buttoned my jacket. "Yes, Your Honor. We move for immediate dismissal of all support claims, and we move for the plaintiff to cover all my legal fees." "Granted. And granted." She slammed the gavel. "Case dismissed with prejudice. Miss Jenkins, you are ordered to pay the defendant's legal costs in the amount of $4,500 within 60 days. And I am forwarding the transcript of this hearing to the district attorney's office to review for potential perjury charges. Get out of my courtroom." Get out of my courtroom. Is there a better sentence in the English language? If you love seeing justice served cold, smash that like button right now. The bailiff practically escorted Vanessa out. Her lawyer didn't even wait for her. He packed his bag and bolted out the side door. I stayed behind for a minute. I shook Mr. Henderson's hand. "Good work," Henderson said, grinning. "I haven't seen a dunk that hard since Jordan in '96. I packed up my files, Exhibit C, Exhibit D, the papers that gave me my life back. I walked out of the double doors into the hallway, and she was there. Vanessa was leaning against the wall, her mascara running down her cheeks. She looked small, defeated. When she saw me, she pushed herself off the wall. "Mark," she said. Her voice was trembling. I didn't stop walking. I just kept moving toward the elevators. "Mark, please." She grabbed my arm. I stopped. I looked down at her hand on my suit jacket. I looked at her face. "Let go," I said. She pulled her hand back like she'd been burned. "Mark, I'm sorry," she cried. "I was scared. Kyle, he's a loser. He won't help me. I didn't know what to do. I needed someone stable. I needed a dad for Leo." "So you stole one?" I asked. "I did it for the baby," she pleaded. "Can't you see that? Leo needs a father. You were so good with him. You held him. You fed him. Doesn't that matter? Can't we just talk? I can explain." I looked at her, really looked at her, and I realized something profound. I didn't hate her anymore. I didn't feel rage. I just felt nothing. She was a stranger. "Vanessa, I'm not Leo's father, and I'm not your bank account." "But what am I supposed to do?" she sobbed. "I have no money. I have legal fees now because of you. How am I supposed to survive?" I pressed the button for the elevator. The doors slid open. I stepped inside and turned around to face her. "You're smart," I said. As the doors started to close, "Call Kyle. Maybe his parents have a basement you can stay in." The doors shut, cutting off the sound of her crying. Silence. I leaned my head back against the metal wall of the elevator and closed my eyes. It was over.
But here is the thing about winning. It doesn't always feel like a victory parade. Sometimes, it just feels like surviving a car crash.
I walked out of the courthouse and into the bright afternoon sun. The air tasted different. It tasted like freedom. I got in my car, but I didn't start the engine immediately. I sat there and thought about Leo, that little baby boy. He was innocent in all of this. He was going to grow up with a mother who was a liar and a father who was a deadbeat DJ. The odds were stacked against him. Part of me, the part that wanted to be a dad, wanted to go back, wanted to help him. But I knew I couldn't. If I gave Vanessa an inch, she would take a mile. If I bought diapers, she would sue for support again. If I visited, she would claim I was assuming a parental role. I had to be ruthless to be free. I pulled out my phone. I had one last thing to do. I went to my contacts. Vanessa, block caller. I went to social media, block. I went to my photos, the folder marked baby. Select all, delete. It hurt. I'm not going to lie to you, it hurt. I was grieving a child that never existed. I was grieving a future that was a lie. But then I looked at my bank account app. Balance, stable. Projected savings, rising. I looked at my calendar. Next weekend, free. The weekend after, free. I started the car. The engine purred. I wasn't just driving away from the courthouse. I was driving away from 18 years of slavery. I was driving away from a life based on deception. I drove to a steakhouse. I sat at the bar. I ordered a ribeye, medium rare, and a whiskey. The bartender put the drink down. Celebrating something? He asked. I took a sip. It burned and settled warm in my chest. Yeah, I said, smiling for real for the first time in 9 months. Independence Day. It's been 6 months since I walked out of that elevator. Life is quiet now, but it's a good kind of quiet. It's the quiet of a house that isn't built on a foundation of lies. I heard through a mutual friend what happened to Vanessa. It wasn't pretty. She tried to take Kyle, the DJ, to court. But Kyle doesn't have a logistics manager salary. Kyle works part-time at a vape shop and lives in his mom's basement. The court ordered him to pay $150 a month. $150? That won't even cover diapers for 2 weeks. Vanessa had to move back in with her parents in a cramped apartment 2 towns over. She's working double shifts at a diner just to make ends meet. The suburban Tahoe dream is gone. The Tahoe is gone. And me? I got promoted last month. I bought a boat. Nothing fancy, just a little fishing boat I take out on weekends. Sometimes when I'm out on the water, holding a fishing rod, looking at the horizon, I think about how close I came to losing all of this. If I hadn't seen that text, if I hadn't checked the dates, if I hadn't had the guts to swab that cheek in the hospital, I would be working overtime right now to pay for another man's child. I would be trapped in a relationship with a woman who viewed me as a paycheck, not a partner. I didn't win because I was smarter. I won because I was willing to look at the ugly truth instead of a beautiful lie.
Listen to me closely. I loved Vanessa. I wanted that baby to be mine. I wanted the family. But love is not an excuse to be blind. If you are in a situation where the math doesn't add up, where your gut is screaming that something is wrong, do not ignore it. Society will tell you that you're insecure for asking questions. They will tell you that asking for a paternity test is an insult. Let them talk. Because at the end of the day, there is only one person who is going to look out for your future. You. Don't sign the paper just to keep the peace. Peace built on a lie isn't peace. It's a ticking time bomb. I walked away with my freedom, my dignity, and my bank account. Vanessa walked away with her secret exposed and her safety net cut. She gambled her future on the hope that I was too weak to check the facts. She bet against the truth. and the house always wins. So, take it from me. A DNA test costs $99. A mistake costs a lifetime. You do the math. Thanks for watching. If this story made your blood boil, or if you think I did the right thing, smash that like button. It really helps the channel. And I want to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever had a gut feeling that saved you from a disaster? Let me know your story down below. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of justice, revenge, and the truth. I'll see you in the next one.